After I was robbed of $180,000, my savings, and my wife's jewelry, my brother-in-law suddenly appeared with a new house in a prestigious neighborhood and a silver Audi. I was boiling with betrayal while he was flaunting his success. But a week later, the phone rang. He was crying into the receiver. "What have you done? I hate you." My revenge was sweet and cold. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. I ran my fingers along the empty shelf inside the safe. The metal felt cold, smooth, no scratches, no marks where someone might have pried or forced their way in. Just an empty cavity where $180,000 in cash and my late wife's jewelry collection had been that morning before I left for my fishing trip. The safe door hung open behind me. I'd been standing there long enough that my coffee had gone cold on the desk. 3 hours, maybe 4. Time moved strangely when you realize your daughter and her husband had just stolen your retirement. Voices drifted from the kitchen. Nia's laugh high and bright. Darius's lower rumble responding. They'd been living in the guest wing for a year now. Temporary, they'd said, just until they got back on their feet. I picked up the desk phone and dialed. Desert View Police Department. I'd like to report a theft. Detective Langston Cole arrived within the hour. Mid-40s, tired eyes, the kind of cop who'd seen enough to know when a case would go nowhere. He examined the safe with professional efficiency, running his fingers over the lock mechanism the way I had. "Clean job," he said. "No scratches, no drill marks." He tested the combination, watching the tumblers align. "Works perfectly." He photographed the empty interior, then turned to me. "Mr. Carter, I need to ask who has access to this safe." 3 people. I kept my voice level. Myself, my daughter Nia, her husband Darius. Cole's expression didn't change, but I saw the small shift in his posture. He'd already drawn his conclusions. "The combination, is it written down anywhere? Stored digitally?" "No, memorized only." "When did you last change it?" 6 months ago. He nodded slowly, making notes. "What was taken?" "Cash, my retirement savings, $180,000, and my late wife's jewelry collection." The words came out matter-of-fact, clinical. 35 years as a financial advisor had taught me to separate emotion from information. Numbers were just numbers. The fact that these particular numbers represented everything I'd saved, everything I'd planned for, didn't change their value in a police report. Without physical evidence of a break-in, Cole said carefully, "We're looking at someone who knew the code. You understand what that means?" "I understand. I'll need to speak with your daughter and son-in-law." I walked to the study door and called down the hallway. "Nia, Darius, could you come here, please?" Darius appeared first, hovering near the doorway like he wasn't sure he was allowed to enter. His hands went under his pockets, then out again, then crossed over his chest. When Detective Cole introduced himself, Darius's eyes darted between us. "This is crazy." His voice came out too loud, too emphatic. "Who would do this?" Nia rushed past him and wrapped her arms around me. "Dad, this is terrible. Who would do this?" The embrace felt performative. Her body was tense, not comforting. She pulled back quickly. Her eyes dried despite the shock in her voice. "We'll help you look for clues," she said. I noticed she hadn't asked what was stolen, as if she already knew. Cole questioned them both. Darius' story came out in a tumble. He'd been working late all week, got home after 10 most nights, hadn't seen anything unusual. His pitch climbed higher with each sentence. "Ray, buddy, we'll figure this out." He forced a smile. "We're family, right?" The word felt hollow. When Cole asked about the safe combination, Darius shifted his weight. "I mean, yeah. Ray gave it to me for emergencies, but I've never used it. Never needed to." Nia jumped in. "My father is the most honest person I know." She looked at Cole with something like accusation. People take advantage of that. The detective took their statements, professional and detached. When he finished, he turned back to me. "I'll be honest with you. These cases are tough. Very tough. We'll investigate, but without witnesses or footage. How long before you know something? Could be weeks. Could be longer." "I'm sorry, Mr. Carter. I understand. Thank you for coming, Detective." After Cole left, Darius and Nia retreated to their bedroom in the guest wing. I heard their door close, heard the urgent murmur of their voices through the wall, though I couldn't make out words. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop, created a new document, typed timeline last 7 days at the top. 35 years as a financial advisor taught me one thing. Numbers don't lie. People do. I'd spent decades tracking money trails, finding discrepancies in portfolios, uncovering fraud that clients thought they'd hidden perfectly. I knew how to read patterns in financial behavior that others missed. This was just another case, except this time it was personal. I began listing dates and events. Who was home when? Darius's supposed late nights at work. Nia's sudden shopping trips to cheer herself up. The way they'd both seemed lighter somehow in the days before I left for my fishing trip. Almost giddy, standing there watching Darius avoid my eyes, watching Nia perform concern while checking her phone. I knew the police couldn't help me. Fine. I'd spent my career building cases, connecting dots that seemed unrelated until you stepped back and saw the pattern. This was the same skill set, different application. Something cold settled in my chest. Not rage, not grief, something methodical. I heard Darius and Nia's bedroom door open. Heard them moving around in the kitchen, voices careful and quiet. They thought the police visit had spooked them into safety. They thought I was just a defeated old man accepting his loss. That was their first mistake. I steepled my fingers and stared at the screen. 3 days. I'd give them 3 days to slip up. Then I'd know for certain. I checked my watch again. 6:45. Nia was 15 minutes late to the dinner I'd invited her to, and Darius hadn't shown up at all. The dining table was set with 3 places. I'd prepared the meal myself. Nothing fancy, just chicken and vegetables. But I'd set it formally. Cloth napkins, water glasses filled, the kind of setup that said this mattered. I heard footsteps on the porch, and then a knock. She lived here, but knocked now. The formality felt like distance, like we were strangers sharing space. Sorry, Dad. Nia, breezing in, not quite meeting my eyes. Darius got caught up at the office. You know how projects are. Convenient. 3 days of me watching them, and now Darius was avoiding direct contact. We sat. Nia accepted food but barely touched it, pushing vegetables around her plate. She kept checking her phone, screen glowing with each notification. How's Darius handling everything? I asked, keeping my tone light. The stress. He's fine, Dad. We're fine. She set her fork down. Actually, I'm glad it's just us. I wanted to tell you something exciting. The shift in her demeanor was immediate. The distracted energy focused into barely contained enthusiasm. Darius and I are buying a house. Our own place. We'll finally be independent. I let surprise register on my face. Mild, not suspicious. A house. That's a big step. Where are you looking? North Saguaro Heights. Really nice neighborhood. North Saguaro Heights. Warehouses started at $500,000 and climbed from there. I kept my expression neutral. Congratulatory. That's expensive territory. You must have found something special. Oh, Darius has been smart with money saving. And his bonuses have been great this year. Darius's bonuses, right? The same Darius who'd asked to borrow money for car insurance 2 months ago. I'm happy for you both, I said. You deserve it. The lie came out smooth. Natural. The way I'd reassured anxious clients for decades that their portfolios were fine, even when they weren't. Nia's phone buzzed again. She glanced at it, then stood abruptly. I should get back. Darius will want to know how you reacted to our news. She was at the door before I could respond. Didn't offer to help clean up. Didn't ask how I was doing with the investigation. Just excited about her new house. Eager to return to Darius. I watched through the window as she walked to the guest wing entrance. Saw the door close behind her. Heard faintly their voices rise in celebration. I cleared the table slowly. 3 plates of barely touched food. 3 water glasses. The formality of the evening suddenly felt absurd. That night, I lay awake listening to their muffled conversation through the walls. They were broke last month, now buying property. The timeline was too perfect. The next morning, I was checking the mailbox when Mr. Douglas approached, walking his terrier. 70-some, friendly. The kind of neighbor who noticed everything but meant no harm by it. Morning, Ray. Beautiful day, isn't it? Morning, Douglas. Say, I saw your son-in-law at the Audi dealership yesterday. He grinned. That boy is doing well for himself. My pulse quickened, but I kept my expression mild. Oh, he was just looking around, I think. Looked serious to me. He was in that finance office forever over on Redstone Road. I was dropping my car for service. Saw him through the window. Well, good for him. I forced a chuckle. Nice to see young folks getting ahead. Douglas continued on his walk. I stood there in my driveway, mail forgotten in my hand. Audi dealership, finance office. Yesterday, I got in my truck and drove. Desert View Audi sat gleaming in the late morning sun. Luxury vehicles arranged like jewelry in a display case. I parked and walked the lot first, scanning Q7S, A8S, even in our route in the showroom window. Inside, the air conditioning hit like a wall. A salesman glanced up from his desk, mid-30s, well-dressed, professionally friendly. I recognized him vaguely from service visits years ago when I'd had at least a 6. Mr. Carter, good to see you. His smile was automatic, but genuine. How's your truck running, Malik? Right. I kept my tone casual. Just a guy stopping by. Running fine, thanks. Actually, I saw my son-in-law here yesterday, Darius Green. Thought I'd check what he bought. Wants to surprise my daughter. Malik's smile faltered slightly. Client privacy warring with politeness, but my approach had been disarming. Family checking on family. Nothing suspicious. Oh, your son-in-law. Yeah, Darius. Darius Green, right? He relaxed. Just bought a Q7. Beautiful vehicle. Silver loaded. He's a lucky guy. He must have gotten good financing. Actually, he made a serious impression with that down payment. Malik leaned in, almost conspiratorial. 25,000 cash. Not many young guys can do that these days. 25,000 in cash. Financing the rest. But with that kind of down payment, banks were happy to work with him. I thanked Malik and left before my face could betray anything. Made it to my truck. Sat there with the engine off, staring at nothing. 3 days after $180,000 disappeared from my safe. Darius had walked into a dealership with $25,000 in cash. I drove home on autopilot, my mind calculating timelines, adding figures. When I turned onto my street, I saw it immediately. A silver Audi Q7 sat in my driveway, new gleaming. Their old Honda was gone. I parked on the street and sat there, engine ticking as it cooled. Stared at that $68,000 vehicle. Did the math. $25,000 down. The rest financed. Bought 3 days after the theft. Something clicked. Not rage, not shock. Something colder, sharper. I entered the house quietly. Heard Darius and Nia laughing in the guest wing, celebrating their new car, their new house, their new life built on my retirement savings. I went to my study and closed the door, locked it, opened my laptop, and created a new document. Titled it Evidence. Listed everything Audi cap and purchase. 25,000 cash down payment. Timing 3 days after theft. Darius's avoidance. Nia's dismissiveness. House purchase announcement. Their sudden wealth after months of being broke. For 35 years, I'd helped clients protect their assets from bad actors. Now I realized with absolute clarity that I'd been living with 2 people who saw me as nothing more than an asset to exploit. I leaned back in my chair, fingers steepled. Through the wall, I heard their voices rise in another burst of laughter. I wouldn't confront them. Not yet. Let them feel safe. Let them buy their house. Drive their new car. Believe they'd gotten away with it. The bigger their dreams got, the harder they'd fall. I'd spent my career following money. This was just another trail. Except this time, I knew exactly where it led. Marcus Harlan's office occupied the 2nd floor of a building on Juniper Street, above a coffee shop that filled the stairwell with the smell of burnt espresso. I climbed the stairs at exactly 9 in the morning, a week after I'd watched Darius drive away in his new Audi. The office was functional, diplomas on the walls, stacks of case files on a credenza, 2 client chairs facing a desk covered in yellow legal pads. Harlan looked up when his assistant showed me in, mid-50s, gray at the temples, reading glasses perched on his nose. "Mr. Carter," he said as he stood, extending his hand. Firm grip, professional. "Have a seat." I placed my manila folder on his desk. Inside were my handwritten timeline, printed bank statements showing the theft date, photographs I'd taken of the Audi in my driveway. Harlan opened it, scanned the contents without expression. "You've been thorough," he said. 35 years as a financial advisor teaches you to document everything." He read for another minute, then looked up. "Mr. Carter, I've reviewed your notes. You've got timeline, opportunity, and suspicious behavior. What you don't have is proof that would satisfy a prosecutor." "I don't want to prosecute them." I kept my voice level. "The police made it clear that's not viable. What I want is information, complete financial information." Harlan set down the folder. "Public records are accessible for legitimate purposes. Mortgage applications, property transfers, tax liens, all public information. I can obtain these legally." "How quickly?" 3 to 5 days, depending on what I find." He slid a document across the desk. "My rate is $350 an hour. For what you're asking, I'll need a retainer of $3,500. That covers about 10 hours of work, maybe more if I hit complications." I pulled out my checkbook, wrote the amount without hesitation. Money wasn't the issue. Getting the truth was. Harlan took the check, made a note on his legal pad. "What exactly are you hoping to find?" "I want to know where a $65,000 a year IT manager got $70,000 in cash." I leaned forward, because the timing suggests he got it from my safe. Understanding something and proving it are different standards. Harlan's expression didn't change. "But I'll get you the documentation. What you do with it is your decision." I drove home and spent the next 4 days performing, playing the defeated father, the man who'd accepted his loss and moved on. The first day I mentioned to Nia that I was closing the police report. "They're not finding anything." She'd looked relieved. "That's probably smart, Dad. Don't torture yourself over it." The second day, Darius asked about moving forward. I sighed, kept my voice tired. "What choice do I have? The money's gone." "That's healthy, man," Darius said. "Can't dwell forever, right?" The third day, Nia asked me about the real estate market. She was researching for their house purchase, wanted my professional opinion on North Saguaro Heights property values. I gave her genuine advice, detailed and helpful. She thanked me, didn't notice the irony. By the fourth day, they'd stopped watching me carefully. Their conversations grew louder, less guarded. They laughed in the guest wing, made plans, talked about furniture shopping. They believed I'd given up. Good. When I returned to Harlan's office, he had a stack of documents waiting. He spread them across his desk like cards in a hand of poker. Mortgage application for $395,000. He tapped the first document. Property in the Saguaro Heights suburbs. Down payment declared as $45,000 cash. I studied the highlighted figures. Where's the property? Don't have the exact address yet. That comes with the closing documents. But the application shows Darius Green as primary borrower. Income verified at $65,000 annually. Harlan pulled out another document. Banking records, the public portions, show no large deposits matching the down payment amount. No loans, no gifts, no inheritance declarations. He looked up. Where does a $65,000 a year IT manager get $70,000 in cash? He doesn't, I said, keeping my eyes on the documents. Unless he steals it. Harlan pulled out a calculator, started running numbers on his legal pad. Let's be conservative. Say he takes home $4,000 a month after taxes. Even if he saved aggressively for 2 years, that's maybe $30,000. Where's the other 40? You know where. Believing and proving are different things, Mr. Carter. He set down his pen. The timeline aligns. The amounts are suspicious, but without a confession or a witness, the police won't touch this. Then I need to find another way. Harlan leaned back in his chair, studying me. If the law can't punish them, maybe the law can give you tools to do it yourself. That's an interesting question, he said. I'd need to think about it. 2 days later, I sat in a different office across town. Business Park, sterile lighting, name on the door, Celine Porter, forensic accountant. Harlan had recommended her. Former IRS auditor, he'd said. Knows how to find money trails. Porter was direct. No small talk, no pleasantries. Marcus sent over the basics. Let me see your timeline. I handed her the spreadsheet I'd created. She studied it for 30 seconds, then turned to her laptop. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard, pulling up what looked like a projection program. Look at this. She turned the screen toward me. My timeline appeared as a visual graph, dates aligned like dominoes falling. February 15th, you're robbed. February 18th, he makes a $25,000 cash down payment on an Audi. February 25th, he applies for a mortgage with $45,000 cash down. $70,000 in 10 days. I said, the IRS looks for patterns like this. Porter highlighted the cash payments in red. Structured transactions designed to avoid reporting requirements. If someone flagged this to them, they'd want answers about income sources. I filed that information away carefully. Not yet, but useful. For your purposes, Mr. Carter, you already have your answer. Porter closed the laptop. The math doesn't lie. He had no legitimate source for this cash. The timing is too perfect. But proving it to a criminal standard, that's different. You'd need a confession or a witness. Can you document all of this in a report? $1, $200. Everything cross-referenced, timeline verified, discrepancies highlighted. Do it. That evening, I sat in my study with both reports spread across my desk. Harlan's property research, Porter's forensic analysis. Together, they told a complete story. Darius and Nia had stolen $180,000 from my safe. They'd used $25,000 for an Audi down payment. They'd used $45,000 for a house down payment. The rest, over $100,000, was likely hidden somewhere. Maybe in their new house, maybe in accounts I couldn't access yet. I had motive. I had opportunity. I had a timeline that aligned perfectly. What I didn't have was proof that would satisfy a criminal court. But I wasn't planning to go to criminal court. I opened my laptop and created a new document. Evidence, February, March 2025. I organized it into sections: timeline, financial discrepancies, behavioral patterns, public records. I printed 2 copies. One went into my new safe. Different model, different location, combination only I knew. The other went into a folder I'd take to my bank's safe deposit box tomorrow. Through the wall, I heard Darius and Nia laughing, music playing. They were celebrating something, probably another step closer to their move. Let them celebrate. Let them pack their boxes and plan their furniture arrangements. Let them think they'd won. I'd spent 3.5 decades helping people build financial security. Now I was using those exact same skills to dismantle the lives of 2 people who'd seen me as nothing more than an asset to exploit. I closed the laptop and turned off the desk lamp. The room went dark except for the glow of streetlight through the window. They thought this was over. They thought they'd gotten away with it. They were wrong. Through the hallway, I could see Darius carrying another box past the guest wing entrance. Kitchen, the label read in Nia's handwriting. She followed with a smaller box, laughing at something he'd said about their new dishwasher. I sat in my living room armchair, coffee cup in hand, watching them pack. 2 weeks until the move. The house closing was finalized. 8847 Mesquite Ridge Drive. I'd known the address for days. Filed it away with everything else. Tonight was their farewell dinner. Nia's idea, supposedly to end things on good terms. I'd agreed, of course, played the gracious father, the man who'd moved on. At 6:30, I finished setting the table. Good dishes, cloth napkins, wine glasses, 3 steaks on the outdoor grill, potatoes roasting in the oven. I'd put effort into this meal, though neither of them would notice or appreciate it. Nia arrived first, carrying a wine bottle. $12 label, thoughtless. Dad, this smells amazing. You didn't have to go to so much trouble. No trouble. I gestured to the table. Last dinner together. Wanted it to be nice. She sat in her usual chair, placed the cheap wine on the table like it was a gift. You're handling everything okay, right? with us leaving. I'm proud of you both. The lie came out smooth. Buying your first home is a big achievement. Darius arrived 10 minutes late, face flushed, eyes already glazed. He'd been drinking in the guest wing before coming over. Hey, Ray. Man, it smells great in here. He sat heavily, immediately reaching for the wine bottle, poured himself a full glass without offering to pour for anyone else. I served the steaks. Nia talked continuously about the house. Amazing natural light, safe neighborhood, perfect pool for entertaining. Darius ate aggressively, refilling his wine glass between bites. I cut my steak methodically, nodded at appropriate moments, counted his drinks. Second glass. Darius interrupted Nia, made jokes about their old apartment being terrible. Third glass. He leaned back in his chair, gestures more expansive, voice louder. No offense, Ray, but you live like someone from the last century. Who keeps cash in a house safe anymore? I smiled. Times change, I suppose. Fourth glass. Darius's filter disappeared entirely. You know what's funny? We lived here a year, and I never felt like adults. Now we're buying property. He laughed, almost knocked over his glass. It's surreal. Nia shot him a look. Darius, maybe slow down. I'm fine, babe. Just celebrating. He refilled his glass, spilled a few drops on the tablecloth. His eyes found mine, something ugly glinting there. You should have hidden your treasures better, Ray. I mean, really, a safe in the study. That's the first place anyone would look. The table went silent. My knuckles went white around my fork handle. Under the table, hidden. My face stayed pleasant, almost amused. You're absolutely right, Darius. Poor security on my part. Nia kicked him under the table. Darius, what are you? What? He said, blinking at her, genuinely confused by her reaction. I'm just saying, if you're going to keep cash around, be smarter about it. We should really get back, Nia said abruptly, standing up. Movers come early tomorrow. Darius frowned. We're having a nice dinner. Nia's voice had an edge I'd rarely heard. Now, Darius. He finally stood, wobbling slightly. Great steak, Ray. You're a good cook. Nia guided him toward the hallway. At the doorway, she turned back. Thanks for dinner, Dad. Really? Darius is just tired and emotional about the move. They disappeared into the guest wing. I sat alone at the table, surrounded by dirty dishes and the half-empty wine bottle Darius had demolished. I didn't move for a full minute, just sat there replaying his words. Should have hidden your treasures better. Not speculation, not a joke. He knew. He'd known where the safe was because he'd opened it. He'd known what was inside because he'd taken it. I stood slowly and began clearing the table. Mechanical movements. Stack plates. Gather silverware. Pour out the last of Darius's wine. The next morning, I called Marcus Harlan at 9 sharp. Marcus, I need everything on their property today if possible. Already pulled it, he said, unsurprised. Had a feeling you'd call. Come by at 2. I was there 5 minutes early. Harlan's office felt familiar now. I sat in the same client chair, watching him slide documents across the desk. Property deed, he said, tapping the first page. Owner, Darius Jerome Green. I read the name. Just his name. Nia's not on the title. Joint tenancy with a spouse would be standard for a married couple, Harlan said. He kept her name off, probably because her credit score was problematic. He pulled out another document. Westfield Bank holds the mortgage, $395,000 at 6.5% interest. I studied the deed, making notes. Single owner. Single point of failure. Marcus, I said, tell me about Arizona's tax lien system. Harlan raised an eyebrow, but he turned to his computer. The state sells tax lien certificates for unpaid property taxes. Legal public process. Anyone can buy them at auction. What does the buyer get? The right to collect the debt plus interest, 16% annually in Arizona. He typed something, pulling up a website. If the debt remains unpaid after proper notification, the lien holder can foreclose. Does Darius have any tax debts? Harlan typed into the county database. After a moment, He turned the screen toward me. Green, Darius J. Outstanding balance $8,476.16. Tax years 2022 and 2023 never fully resolved. 8,000, I murmured. A small debt, barely worth the county's effort to chase. To you, maybe, Harlan said carefully. To me, it's leverage. Can anyone buy these liens? I asked. At public auction, yes. Sometimes directly from the county if they remain outstanding. Harlan was watching me now, cautious. Why? What would happen if I bought Darius's tax lien? You'd own his debt. He'd owe you, not the state. If he doesn't pay within the legal time frame, you could force a sale of assets. Assets like his house. Harlan leaned back. This is a long game, Mr. Carter. 6 months minimum before you could foreclose. Probably longer. I've got time, I said. And patience. I'll be clear, he said. I'm advising you on legal options. What you do with those options is your decision. Understood, I said. Set it up. He made notes on his legal pad. Quietly. Through a shell company if necessary. Darius shouldn't know I own his debt until I'm ready for him to know. That can be arranged. The next morning, I woke to the rumble of a moving truck at 6. I made coffee and stood at my living room window watching. The truck filled my driveway. 2 movers carried out furniture, couch, bed frame, boxes stacked high. Darius directed them, pointing and gesturing. Nia checked items off on a clipboard. Neither of them looked at the main house. I watched for 20 minutes. When they finished loading, Darius climbed into the moving truck. Nia got into the Audi, the car I'd indirectly paid for, and followed the truck down the street. Silence returned. For the first time in a year, I was alone in the house. That afternoon, I sat in my study with Arizona tax code printed and highlighted on my desk. I'd spent hours researching foreclosure timelines, notification requirements, court procedures. I created a new document, Operation Timeline. Phase 1. Purchase tax lien through shell company Harlan would establish. Phase 2. Let them settle in. Get comfortable. 6 months, maybe longer. Phase 3. Apply financial pressure. Perhaps a tip to the IRS about unexplained cash. Let them feel the walls close in. Phase 4. Demand payment when they're weakest. When they can't pay, move to foreclosure. Phase 5. Take the house. Sell it at auction. Watch everything they build crumble. I leaned back in my chair, studying the plan. This wasn't about recovering my money. I'd accepted that was gone. This was about justice. About making them understand that stealing from someone they underestimated had consequences. Through the window, I could see the empty parking spot where the Audi had been. The guest wing sat dark, silent, uninhabited. Let them enjoy their new house. Let them swim in their pool and host parties, feeling like they'd escaped. The foreclosure notice would taste sweeter when they were comfortable. The GPS announced my arrival as I turned onto Mesquite Ridge Drive. The neighborhood transformed with each block, houses growing larger, lawns greener, driveways wider. This was North Saguaro Heights wealth, the kind that announced itself with tile roofs and 3-car garages. 8847 sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, Spanish colonial style, cream stucco with terracotta tiles, circular driveway wrapping around a fountain. Darius's silver Audi gleamed in the afternoon sun. Next to it, a new Honda CR-V. Another purchase. I parked on the street 3 houses down, sat for a moment studying the property. Pool visible through the side gate. Outdoor furniture already arranged on the patio. Desert landscaping meticulously maintained. They'd been here less than 2 weeks and had already spent thousands more. The housewarming gift sat in my passenger seat. Expensive wine and a gourmet basket. $150 total. Appropriate. Perfect prop. I walked up the stamped concrete path and rang the bell. Modern video doorbell. I smiled at the camera. Nia opened the door within seconds. Her expression cycled through surprise, confusion, then forced politeness. Dad, this is unexpected. I held up the basket. Thought I'd check out the new place. Congratulations again. She stood in the doorway, hesitant to invite me in. Darius appeared behind her, hand resting on her shoulder. His face mirrored the same guarded surprise. Ray, Didn't expect to see you. Should I have called first? I asked, smiling lightly. Social convention trapped them. Nia stepped aside. No, come in. The interior matched the exterior's promise. Vaulted ceilings, tile floors, living room furnished with leather pieces that looked expensive. I brushed a hand along the sofa's arm as we passed. Good quality. Thanks, Nia said tightly. Let me show you around. The kitchen stopped me. Wolf Range, Sub-Zero refrigerator. Granite counters stretching forever. I ran my hand along the cool stone. These appliances must have cost a fortune. We upgraded a few things, Darius said. Worth the investment. I made appropriate noises of approval while mentally calculating $15,000 in appliances, $20,000 in furniture. The numbers lined up in my head like clockwork. Nia led me through sliding glass doors to the backyard. The pool stretched out before us, heated pump humming quietly. Outdoor kitchen, lounge chairs, string lights waiting for evening. This is impressive, I said. Really impressive. Want to sit? Darius gestured to the lounge chairs. We sat. Nia disappeared inside and returned with drinks. Water for herself, beers for us. Darius drank his quickly, reaching for a second. How are the neighbors? I asked. Everyone friendly. Haven't met many yet, Darius said. Been busy settling in. And work's good. Must be, to afford all this. He grinned, but it didn't reach his eyes. Yeah, actually got promoted to senior manager last month. Things are good. The lie rolled off his tongue easily. I knew his salary. No promotion. No bonus. Just theft. That's great, I said smoothly. The doorbell chimed. A digital voice announced, someone's at the front door. Darius stood quickly. That's probably Mike and Tanya. We've got people coming over. I stood too. Then I should go. Don't want to intrude on your party. You don't have to rush off, Nia said, though her relief betrayed her. No, really. Enjoy yourselves. I followed Darius to the front door. A couple stood outside, holding a wine bottle. Brief introductions, handshakes. I excused myself and walked to my truck, but I didn't leave. I parked farther down the street, where I could still see the house, but not be obvious. More guests arrived, 3 couples total, luxury cars lining the curb. Music drifted from the backyard. Laughter, celebration. They were showing off their stolen life to friends who didn't know the foundation was built on someone else's savings. I took a photo of the house on my phone, documentation, and then drove away. 3 days later, I met Marcus Harlan at a coffee shop instead of his office. He'd suggested the change, more discreet, he said, for what we needed to discuss. He was already seated when I arrived, stirring a cup of black coffee. The place was half empty, the low hum of quiet conversations filling the air. Harlan slid a manila folder across the table as I sat down. Complete tax records for Darius Green, he said. I opened it, scanning the pages. Harlan pointed to a highlighted section. There, $8,247 unpaid from tax years 2022 and 2023. He made partial payments, but never cleared it. Why hasn't the state pursued this? Too small for aggressive collection. Current total with penalties is $9,180. He tapped his calculator. And the state will sell this debt to anyone who wants it. Arizona's investor-friendly that way. 16% annual interest. I studied the numbers. What do I need to do? Harlan reached into his briefcase and pulled out incorporation documents. We create a limited liability company. You're the sole member, but ownership is obscured through legal structure. I'll be registered agent. All communications go through my office. He showed me the proposed name printed at the top of the papers. Mesquite Ridge Holdings, LLC. Generic, I said. Exactly, he replied with a faint smile. Perfect. I signed the formation documents without hesitation. Harlan explained the timeline. Once the LLC is established, we purchase the tax lien directly from the county. Once you own it, you're his creditor. He owes you, not the state. When can I demand payment? Whenever you want. But my advice? Wait. Let him get comfortable. Let him spend more money, take on more obligations, then strike when he's financially stretched thin. I nodded slowly. How long before I could foreclose if he doesn't pay? Minimum 90 days after formal demand. Could take longer depending on his response. I've got time. Harlan raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. I'll draft the paperwork. That night, I sat in my study researching Arizona foreclosure law. The statutes were clear. Notification requirements, redemption periods, court procedures. I opened a fresh document on my laptop and created a flowchart. Acquisition, waiting period, demand, default, foreclosure. I added estimated dates. At the current pace, foreclosure could begin by late August. Friday evening, I drove past their house again. It was dark out, the desert air cooling for the first time in weeks. Light spilled from their backyard. The pool glowed an electric blue, music thumping faintly. At least 12 people were visible, drinks in hand, laughter loud enough to echo down the street. Another party, another celebration. Every smile, every toast, every song was built on my stolen savings. I didn't stop. I drove by slowly, watching the scene like an investigator at a crime scene, then turned the corner and went home. Tuesday morning, Harlan called. It's done. Mesquite Ridge Holdings now owns Darius Green's tax lien. How much total? $9,180. The lien certificate has been recorded with the county. When does Darius find out? When we want him to, or when he tries to refinance or sell. The lien is public record, but most people never check unless they have a reason. Good, I said. Let him stay ignorant. I thanked Harlan, hung up, and walked to my study. From my filing cabinet, I pulled out the folder labeled Phase 1, Tax Lien Acquisition. I slid the certified document inside, sealed it, and opened a new folder titled Phase 2, Pressure. Then I opened my laptop, coffee steaming beside me, and navigated to the IRS website. Form 3949A, Information Referral. The form used by citizens to report suspected tax fraud. Anonymous, legal, untraceable. I began filling it out carefully, line by line. Taxpayer name, Darius Jerome Green. Address, 8847 Mesquite Ridge Drive, Saguaro Heights, Arizona. Tax year, 2025. Description, taxpayer made cash payments totaling $70,000 in February 2025. Vehicle down payment, $25,000. Real estate down payment, $45,000. Known salary, $65,000 annually. No explanation for cash source. Possible unreported income. I reviewed it twice. No mistakes. No identifying information about me. That's what anonymous meant. Then I clicked submit. A confirmation page appeared with a reference number. I wrote it in my notebook. Closed the browser. Sat back. Phase 2 had begun. The waiting was the hardest part. 3 weeks of silence. 3 weeks of pretending to live normally. I still went to the same coffee shop every morning. Still picked up groceries. Still nodded politely to neighbors. If anyone looked closely, they'd have seen a man at peace. A retired financial advisor living quietly in the desert suburbs. But every night, in the quiet of my study, I reviewed my plan. Watched the calendar. Waited. Finally, one afternoon in mid-May, my phone rang. Harlan's number. Interesting development, he said. Darius called my office this morning. My pulse quickened. He knows about the lien? No. He was asking my receptionist for tax attorney recommendations. Why would he need that? That's what I wondered, Harlan said. So I made a few calls. He's in trouble with the IRS. I sat back, a slow breath leaving my lungs. Already. Sounds like your anonymous tip hit the system. 2 days later, I called Darius myself. Strategic timing, just long enough to seem concerned, not suspicious. He answered on the 4th ring. Hello, Darius. It's Ray. Just checking in, seeing how you two are settling in. Oh, hey. His voice sounded off. Tight. Not the best time, honestly. Just wanted to see how the house is treating you. Any issues? The house is fine. Just busy. Work's crazy. He sounded distracted, exhausted. the sound of someone cornered but trying to act normal. You sound tired, I said. You taking care of yourself? I'm fine. Really? Just a lot going on. Defensive. I understand. I'll let you go then. Yeah. Thanks, Ray. He hung up abruptly. I smiled slightly. That evening, my phone rang again, 9:30 p.m. This time it was Nia. Dad, she said, voice tight. I need to ask you something. And I need you to be honest. Of course, I said evenly. Have you talked to anyone about Darius's finances? Anyone official? I let confusion color my tone. What? No. Why would I? What's going on? She exhaled shakily. Darius got a letter from the IRS. They're investigating his taxes. The IRS? I asked, feigning surprise. That's serious. What do they want? Something about cash transactions earlier this year. He has to prove where the money came from. Her voice cracked slightly. He hired an attorney. $5,000 just for the retainer. $5,000. Yeah, we can manage, but it's unexpected. She paused. Darius thinks someone reported him. Said it's too specific to be random. Why would anyone report him? That's what I said, but he's paranoid now. These audits happen randomly sometimes, I said. The IRS uses algorithms. Maybe. She didn't sound convinced. I should go. Thanks, Dad. When the call ended, I sat in the dark for a long time. The only sound was the low hum of the refrigerator and the distant crickets outside. Everything was moving according to plan. The next morning, I went to Harlan's office. He already had coffee ready. Figured you'd come in after Nia's call, he said. I arched a brow. How'd you know? I monitor these things for you. He turned his laptop toward me. His tax attorney, Richard Hammond. Retainer, $5,000. Hourly rate, $300. Darius is looking at $8,000 to $10,000 minimum in legal fees. And the IRS bill. $70,000 unreported income. Assuming his bracket, roughly $15,000 owed, plus penalties. Total hit around $25,000. And he still doesn't know about the lien? Not yet. I smiled, calm and slow. Good. Phase 2 was working beautifully. By the end of May, the cracks were showing. Nia's voice trembled when she called. Darius sounded hollow, beaten. The walls were closing in, and I wasn't even done yet. 2 weeks passed. I didn't call them again. Let the silence stretch. Let the anxiety ferment. The IRS didn't work fast, but its shadow lingered long enough to make people unravel. When the phone finally rang again, it was Nia. Evening. Her voice came through uneven, strained. Dad, everything's falling apart. I waited. Silence was power. She took a shaky breath. Darius finally told me the truth about the money. My heart beat steady. My voice calm. What truth? He said he did something stupid. Something he shouldn't have. He said he took money, borrowed it, he said. Without permission. From whom? I don't know. He wouldn't say. But you suspect. A pause. Then, barely above a whisper. It was from you, wasn't it? I let another long silence hang in the air before I spoke. Yes, Nia. It was. She started crying softly. Oh my God, Dad. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know when we bought the house. You didn't ask, though, did you? I said, when he suddenly had thousands in cash. You didn't want to know. I didn't think. You didn't want to think, I said. You wanted to believe the story that made you comfortable. Please, she sobbed. We can fix this. Just tell me what to do. Can you help us? Just a loan. Please. I leaned back in my chair, looking at the framed photo of my late wife on the wall. No, Nia. I can't enable theft. But I'm your daughter. And you chose your husband over me the day you moved into my house, knowing he'd stolen from me. Her breath caught. You knew. I've known for months. She was silent for a long moment. Then her voice came back sharp, almost furious. You're behind all of this, aren't you? The IRS, the taxes, this is you. I reported suspicious financial activity. I said simply, that's perfectly legal. You're destroying us. No, Nia. Darius destroyed you when he opened my safe. I could hear her crying harder now. anger and grief mixing in the sound. "I hope you're proud of yourself," she said through tears. "I'm not proud," I said, "but I am thorough." I hung up. That night, I opened my document, Operation Timeline. At the bottom, under Phase 2, I typed, "Complete." Then a new heading, Phase 3 Endgame. June 15th arrived. The air shimmered with heat, the kind that warped the horizon line. That morning, I called Harlan. "Send the demand letter." "Today?" he asked. "Yes. Certified mail. Signature required." He hesitated. "You want to give him a chance to respond?" "I want proof he received it," I said. He sighed softly. "Understood." That evening, as I sat in my study, the phone rang again. I didn't need to check the caller ID. "Dad," Nia said, voice trembling. "We just got a letter from a company called Mesquite Ridge Holdings. They're demanding $10,000 for some old tax debt." "That's unfortunate," I said evenly. "We just paid the IRS almost $20,000, she said, voice breaking. "We don't have another $10,000. "Then you should have paid your taxes on time," I said. There was a pause. "Darius thinks you're behind this company. Are you?" "Debts get sold all the time," I said. "That's how the system works." "The timing, the name, it's too convenient," she said, her voice rising. "First the IRS, now this. You're doing all of this." "Darius created those debts," I said. "I'm simply collecting them." "I can't believe you do this to your own daughter." "I'm not doing anything to you, Nia," I said quietly. "I'm just letting the law take its course." She hung up. I sat there for a moment, looking at the soft glow of the lamp on my desk. Then I opened my document and updated the next line. Phase 3 initiated, demand letter sent. Anticipated outcome, default within 30 days. 2 weeks of silence followed. No calls, no texts. Then one night, I drove past their house again. The lawn was overgrown, the sprinklers off. The Audi sat in the driveway with a handwritten "for sale" sign taped inside the window. I smiled faintly. Through the window, I could see them arguing, shadows moving back and forth across the lit living room. I didn't stop. I didn't need to. I'd already won. Harlan called with an update 2 mornings later. "Seth, sorry, Darius's attorney is digging into Mesquite Ridge Holdings, asking questions about ownership. Can they trace it back to me?" I asked. "Eventually, yes. The structure provides privacy, not absolute anonymity. With enough determination, they'll figure it out in a week or 2. "Good," I said calmly. "Let them. Everything I've done is legal." "I just want you prepared," he said. "He might react badly." "I'm counting on it." Late June, my phone rang again. This time, Nia didn't cry. She screamed, "Dad, please. We're going to lose everything. I'm begging you. Stop this." "I can't," I said. "You won't." "Darius made choices," I said flatly. "You enabled them. I hate you for this. You're entitled to your feelings." "We're getting a lawyer," she said, voice shaking. "We'll fight you." "Good luck with that," I said. "I haven't broken any laws." "You're a monster." "No," I said, and my voice was calm, steady. "I'm justice." I hung up. Then I blocked both of their numbers. That night, I updated my document again. Phase 3 complete. Default imminent. Next step, foreclosure filing, August. I looked at the calendar on my wall and circled July 25th in red. Next to it, I wrote one word deadline. The following week, I heard from Harlan again. "They're panicking," he said. Their attorney called to inquire about payment extensions. He also mentioned Darius hired a private investigator named David Reeves. To investigate what? You. Harassment, conspiracy, stalking. He's throwing everything at the wall. I smiled. Waste of money. There's nothing to find. Exactly what I told him. 2 days later, Harlan forwarded me a copy of Reeves's preliminary report, obtained through his network. No evidence of illegal activity. Carter's purchase of tax lien at public sale was legal. IRS report anonymous, untraceable. No basis for legal action. Darius had paid $2,000 to confirm I'd done everything by the book. Perfect. By early July, the cracks were full fractures. Their house sat dark most nights. The Audi disappeared one day, then returned with a dented fender and a for sale listing online at a price thousands below market value. Their finances were bleeding out, exactly as planned. Then, on July 10th, the final letter arrived. 2 missed payments on the tax lien. Harlan said over the phone. That gives us full legal right to demand immediate payment. Total due now, $10,500. Send the notice, I said. He paused. Ray, you sure you want to keep pushing this hard? They're unraveling. I looked out the window. The sunset burned the sky red over the desert ridge. That's the point. July 25th came and went. No payment. No response. At 6 o'clock that evening, I called Harlan. He didn't pay. I figured as much, Harlan said. Ready to file the foreclosure notice? Yes. He hesitated again. You know, once this goes through, there's no turning back. I've been ready since February. He exhaled. All right, I'll file it tomorrow morning. That night, I sat on my porch, a cold beer in hand, the cicadas droning in the dark. I thought about my wife, about the way she used to sit beside me in that same spot, knitting, humming softly. She'd always believed in fairness, in integrity, in right and wrong. I hoped she'd understand what I was doing. Maybe she would have told me to forgive. Maybe she would have told me to let go. But I couldn't. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about balance, about restoring the scales. I finished my beer, set the bottle down carefully on the porch railing, and whispered to the night, justice takes time. The next morning, just as the sun cracked over the horizon, Harlan filed the foreclosure notice. By noon, the document was public record, Mesquite Ridge Holdings, LLC v. Darius Jerome Green. It was official. I spent the afternoon sitting in my study, blinds half drawn, the room awash in pale gold light. A copy of the filing sat on my desk. Legal words, structured paragraphs, emotionless and precise. Notice of default, right to cure, redemption period, everything in order, everything lawful. It was almost beautiful in its symmetry. That evening, my landline rang. The number was blocked, but I knew who it was before I even picked up. I let it ring twice more before answering. You've won, Darius said. His voice was flat, cold. Not the frantic tone I expected. Congratulations, Ray. You've ruined us. I said nothing. I sold the car. Sold everything I could. It's not enough. His voice cracked slightly. You could have just talked to me. I did, I said calmly. I asked questions you didn't answer. I made a mistake, he said. I panicked. I thought I could put it back before you noticed. You emptied my safe. I was desperate. You were greedy, I corrected. A long silence followed. Finally, he said, you think you're some kind of moral hero, but you're just a vengeful old man with nothing left to lose. That may be true, I said, but I'm also thorough. And unlike you, I finish what I start. His breathing quickened. You'll regret this, Ray. I swear you will. The line went dead. I stared at the receiver for a long moment before setting it back down. Then I opened my laptop and added one final entry to my document. Phase 4, execution. Status, active. 2 days later, Harlan called. We've received notice from Darius's attorney. They're attempting to negotiate a settlement. Partial payment in exchange for withdrawal of the foreclosure. How much? $5,000. I almost laughed. He stole $180,000. He can't even repay 10. I assume that's a no. File for full recovery, I said. Harlan hesitated. Ray, I have to say it. You've made your point. They're broken. Maybe it's time to stop. If I stop now, I said quietly, then all I've done is scare them. Fear fades. Consequences don't. He sighed. Then I'll proceed. In early August, I drove to the courthouse myself. The hearing was public record, but I wanted to see it, to watch the final stroke of the gavel that would seal it all. It was a small courtroom, barely 10 people inside. Darius sat at the defendant's table, his suit wrinkled, his eyes hollow. Nia sat beside him, pale, trembling. They looked older, thinner. The arrogance was gone, replaced by fatigue. When the clerk called the case, Harlan stood on my behalf, reading from prepared notes. Calm, methodical. He outlined the timeline, the lien, the default, the lack of payment. The judge asked if the defense had any rebuttal. Darius's attorney muttered something about financial hardship, good faith, and unforeseen circumstances. The judge barely looked up from his papers. Legal debt, legal filing, no evidence of fraud on the plaintiff's part. Then the sound I'd waited months for, the solid, final strike of the gavel. Judgment for the plaintiff. Nia's quiet sob was the only sound that followed. Darius didn't look at me as he stood. He just stared straight ahead, fists clenched, jaw tight. I left before they did. Outside, the air was blistering hot, the kind of dry heat that steals your breath. I walked slowly to my truck, every step deliberate. When I sat behind the wheel, I realized my hands were trembling. Not with guilt, not with triumph, but with something else entirely. Relief. For the first time in months, I felt free. The foreclosure process moved quickly. Within 30 days, the county issued a sale notice. Unless Darius found the funds, the house would be auctioned by October. He didn't. On September 28th, the property was sold. Winning bid, $512,000. Mesquite Ridge Holdings collected full repayment of the lien, plus interest, plus legal fees. When Harlan called to confirm the transfer, he sounded subdued. "It's done," he said. "They're out." "Where did they go?" I asked. "Not sure. They vacated 3 days ago. Neighbor said a U-Haul came at night. Probably an apartment somewhere." I thanked him and hung up. Then, curiosity overriding reason, I drove to the house. The cul-de-sac was quiet, the fountain dry. The sold sign tilted slightly in the front yard. Through the windows, I could see the emptiness, blank walls, bare floors, the echo of absence. I parked at the curb and sat there for a long time. A light breeze carried the faint smell of dust and sun-baked stone. The world felt still, like it was holding its breath. After a while, I got out, walked up to the gate, and peeked into the backyard. The pool was half drained, a thin layer of algae forming along the tile edges. Leaves floated on the surface. Everything they'd built was rotting already. I turned and walked back to the truck. I thought it would feel like victory. It didn't. It felt quiet. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. Handwritten. No return address. Inside was a single page. "You win. We're leaving Arizona. Nia deserved better than both of us. Don't bother calling." Darius, there was a faint watermark where the ink had bled. A tear, maybe. I folded the letter neatly and slipped it into the folder with the rest of the documents. My record was complete. Autumn came. The desert cooled, the air crisp again. One morning, as I sat on the porch with my coffee, I noticed something new in the distance. A moving truck 2 streets over. A young couple unloading boxes into the Mesquite Ridge house. Life filling the void. I watched for a while, then went back inside. The house felt large again, too large, too quiet. I wandered through the rooms, through the echoes of where my daughter's laughter had once been. In the study, the safe sat in its place, the new model with the heavy reinforced door. Inside, the replacement cash and documents lay untouched. Everything secure, everything in order. I closed it, spun the dial, and leaned my forehead against the cold metal. It wasn't about the money. It never had been. It was about trust, about betrayal, about making someone understand the cost of stealing not just cash, but faith. And yet, standing there in the dim light, I realized something I hadn't before. I'd lost her anyway. Justice had a price. I'd paid it willingly. Now I just had to live with the balance. 3 months later, near Christmas, I received another letter. This one forwarded from Harlan's office. The handwriting was familiar. "Dad, we're in Nevada now. I'm working again. Darius is trying. I can't say I forgive you, but I understand you. I wish Mom were still here. Maybe she would have known how to stop all this before it started. I hope someday you'll find peace. Nia." I read it 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and placed it with the first one. I didn't cry. Not exactly. But something inside me loosened, like a knot finally unraveling after too long being pulled tight. I stood, walked to the porch, and watched the horizon glow orange and red with the setting sun. The desert stretched endlessly ahead, vast, empty, honest. For the first time in a long while, I felt the faintest trace of something I thought I'd buried with my revenge. Not forgiveness. Not quite. But maybe, just maybe, peace.